Well, hey everybody, it's Casey Jaycox with the Quarterback Dadcast. We are coming to you live on video now at the end of season 5, which has been so much fun. Shout out to my boy Ishmeet for just producing some content and some videos and making these awesome clips. But this gentleman I've been in touch with for the last few months. I've followed his work for months, and I always love talking to dads who have similar interests as me. And I know that I'm going to learn something from this next guest. And his name is Mike Weinberg. He's a 4-time best-selling author of many sales books, specifically Sales Management Simplified. He also runs a Sales Management Simplified podcast. He might be Damien the Great Dane, University of Albany. I'm not sure. We'll find out if that's true or not. He runs sales and leadership events. He's a golf fanatic. He might drive a Porsche. I don't know if that's true or not. But more importantly, we're having Mike on today to talk about Mike the dad and how he has or is continue working hard to become that ultimate quarterback or leader of his household. So without further ado, Mr. Weinberg, welcome to the Quarterback Dadcast.
What an intro. What a treat to be here. Yeah, that was pretty good, Casey. I'm thrilled to be here. And it's funny when you said, that we have some similarities. The difference is you're the real athlete and I'm the fan of the athletes. So we're going to have some differentiation there. I joke with my wife and my kids, and they curse me for this, but my wife's a total jock.
Okay.
And like she grew up in California. She played high school football on a women's team.
High school football?
Yeah, they had a girls
Let's go.
Flag football league. My wife can throw a 40-yard spiral. Like when I'm hanging out with other dads and she's around and like they're throwing the ball, I just sit down and let her throw because I'm not embarrassing myself.
You fake an injury?
So I watered down my kids' gene pool just enough that like they have my love of sports, but I screwed up her athletic ability. So none of them were like elite varsity athletes because of me. So
do you ever run routes for
her? Yeah, a little bit. But, now that we're getting older, we kind of cut that back. The kids would run the routes back in the day. There we go. So
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, we always start out each episode with gratitude. So tell me, what are you most grateful for as a dad today?
Wow. That's a loaded question, particularly on Thanksgiving week, right? It's emotional. Try not to get choked up here in our first 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for 3 kids that I'm in great relationship with, and kids that are walking out what they believe to be true in their adult life, which bring their mom and I a ton of joy. Like I just am overjoyed. I have 3 kids that live in 3 different cities. One lives in my town, and that's the one that has a couple my 2 grandkids. And then I have a kid in Chicago and another one in Indianapolis. And I just have a ton of joy and thankfulness for watching them live their adult lives, true to who they are. And whether it's their faith or the contribution they're making to the community or what they're doing professionally. And I've got some kids that have changed direction. It's been fascinating watching. Almost none of them are doing what I anticipated they would do, or what maybe my vision for their life was. And that's been a whole learning experience as a, parent to adult children. And I couldn't be more proud of them. So there's a lot of gratefulness there, but mostly, honestly, it's for relationship. And I have some dear friends who do not have great relationships with their adult children. And that's a heavy burden to carry. So,
yeah, that is, you just really kind of, are clearly articulated kind of like my goal, or my wife and I goal, just like, and so far we're on that path. Hopefully we'll stay on that same path. And I want to unpack that in a second, but what I'm most grateful for is like we said, it's Thanksgiving week. Everybody, this episode will come out next month. And my son's a freshman in college. He plays golf in college. He's home for 9 days. His girlfriend, she's been around here and she's fantastic. Shout out to Charlie. So I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful for my daughter, who's a junior in high school. She's a scrappy little hooper, and she's worked her ass off behind the scenes, but she just got named captain of the basketball team as junior. And I mean, I could not be more proud. But she's grounded, but and she already is adopting like the power of mindset and visualization and habits. And she's seeing when you consistently do this, not like once a day but like on weeks, like, wow, there's actually good things happen when you do that. And so
she's a junior and she's adopting that now. Yeah, that's a big deal. That's really a big deal.
So I'm very, and just grateful for like this weekend, my son had like another couple over and just like the noise in the house. It almost brought me like to tears because I was like, God, I told my wife, I'm like, this is awesome. I said, and I came downstairs to the kids. I'm like, hey, I don't want to be that weird dad. This is like goofy and embarrassing, but I'm just grateful for the noise in the house. It's awesome.
Yeah. Isn't that what we want?
Oh, yeah.
And it's even better when they're hanging out at our house because you get to enjoy it,
Yeah, exactly. And then in about in a week, that'll be quiet again, but okay. So you mentioned three kids. I always like to go inside the Weinberg huddle. So maybe your wife's playing quarterback. Well, maybe you're the GM, but you're going to be the quarterback in today's conversation. So tell me a little bit about each member of the team, and then how did you and your wife meet?
Yeah. We'll start with my wife. She's a rock, and this is what I put in the dedication to my first book, which I dedicated to her. But I said to my beautiful bride and my best friend, and the best proof that I can sell,
There
because
you go.
nobody meets Katie and thinks that she got a better deal in our marriage. You spend 30 seconds with her, you're like, okay, so he sold you. So that's kind of like our little wink to each other, that I know, people like to say, yeah, I kicked your coverage. Like I punching above my weight class here. So she's a rock. She grew up in California. I'm from New York, and we've lived our entire married life in St. Louis, which
Okay.
is not exactly, and I can say this because I'm not from here, this is not the garden spot of the United States, but it's home. And when you come here, the first thing people ask you when they meet you is, where'd you go to school? And they're asking, where'd you go to high school? And which is so funny because neither she nor I can answer that question, but our kids can. Because so we've raised three St. Louisans here. So we have this interesting, I almost call it a blended family, East Coast, West Coast, and then three Midwestern children who only know this life. And it's always amusing when we take them back to where we're from to show them this is kind of what formed us. But my wife is a steady Eddie, independent, incredible woman who spends a lot of time right now investing in other people, because she's been retired for about, I don't know, 8 or 9 years, and she's using her freedom well for fun. And, I always wanted to be a dad. And it's been great. It's been a great joy. I always say on Father's Day to the kids, like, you're my gift, and I said this to you even right before the show, like, my favorite title is dad. And I get called some really cool things, and I never expected to have this platform that I've got, or I get called into these gigantic companies to do what I do with sales management or sales. And that's all wonderful. It pales in comparison to being called dad.
Love it.
And, you're right on the precipice of this pivot that I've just gone through over the last 5 years or so, where you are now fully parenting adult children. And what's so interesting, and we've noticed this with some friends from church and people like we've been in community group with, that we're like, why are you so busy when your kids are out of the house? And why are you always doing all this parenting? I had this like fallacy that, parenting ends when the kids get out of the house. It's amazing how many conversations about life, and not that we're directing or parenting like you parent a child, it's just kind of sounding board stuff and life coaching, or changing a diaper on a grandchild, or, offering some encouragement to a kid who's got something going on in his job that just doesn't feel right. And, it's not about advice. It's just about friendship or
Yeah.
feedback or being honest or reminding them what's true. So, I don't know, I kind of went down a path there, but so that I gave you my wife and my three kids. My oldest is 28, lives in St. Louis. He married his high school sweetheart.
Love it.
Like at his junior prom, like he and his girlfriend were voted most likely to live happily ever after. I joke, like at 28, they're old souls. Like they should be driving a Buick station wagon, and he should be wearing long dark socks, like with his tennis shorts. So he's as cool and relational as you get. But I mean, they're old souls with great friends, and now we're watching them parent. And one of my joys, like I love having the grandkids, particularly the one that's now 2 years old and is just a riot, and calls me Papa Mike. But I get more joy out of watching my son and his wife parent, and just what they're bringing to the table and their emotional investment in the kids. And like that, I can't tell you like the multiplier effect that for my wife and I and our satisfaction as adults watching our son parent. So that's his life, and he's in the financial industry and kind of in a back office type role, and just real steady and real relational. One of the most likable people I've ever met, and yet inside there's a lot of drive, and very competitive. But he's mellow on the outside. My second child is my daughter, who I used to joke all the time was my high potential child, because she was the most driven. She was in every activity at school, first chair flautist in the high school and making state and doing marching band and national merit scholar, like crazy stuff. And she's had the most interesting time as an adult, because she's, of all my kids, maybe the biggest hearted, most interested in social justice, lifting up people that are on the down and out. She was the one making sure the kids that weren't included had a place to sit at the prom when she went with a group of girls. Like that's who she, that's just a joy. Stayed away from a lot of girl drama. And she's had the most interesting career shift because she's my downwardly mobile child. This is a girl that was a National Merit Scholar that went to a very prestigious architecture school, got a master's degree in architecture, and 2 years into architecture came to me and it's like, I can't do this. I'm like, I know. Like, and we knew watching it, even near the end of her schooling and in the company, it didn't, the gifts required to do the job that she was doing weren't hers. Like, she just did it through grunt force. She wanted to work with people and not manage projects. And she has high aesthetic values. And she left her architecture firm to work for like a Christian community healthcare clinic in West Chicago.
Wow.
She's going into hospitals, helping underserved people, like make sure they get the type of healthcare they need, speaking Spanish half the time. And I couldn't be happier for her.
Wow.
Like my vision of what her life was going to look like if you would have watched her grow up. So there's a lot of joy in seeing her kind of find her way. And then learning how to die to a few dreams. Like my wife and I, there's when you paid for a kid to get a master's degree in a professional thing, which we did, and to be okay a few years later when the kid looks at you and goes, I don't want to do this. And to have the grace and understanding to go, you're right. This isn't a fit for you. I don't think you're ever going to even really like this because you're not naturally good at a lot of what this job requires. You just fought through it because you're really talented and really smart. That was like one of those massive parenting moments in our life that I could look to. And then my little guy is just a source of joy right now. He's a couple years out of Purdue and decided to move to Indianapolis as an adult. He still goes back to Purdue basketball games and lives with really neat guys who he met at Purdue. And he's plugged into the Indianapolis community and going to a neat church there. And just fun to watch him be a young adult. And he's for everything from fitness to ministry he's involved in to just making sure he's got a full life as a single guy. So not a ton of stress there, like it's just been interesting watching them all kind of do their thing and being in the background.
And what's his jam? Does he know what he's doing job wise yet?
Yeah, he's working kind of in a revenue support function. Like he's more like a project manager, analytics kid. I've tried to get him to go into sales because he has the humor and the drive and the competitive spirit, and he really cares about financial things. He's very wise with his money, and but he just doesn't want to do the outbound thing, part of sales. So I could see him ended up in account management, but right now he's trying to figure out what is it going to look like. I think he's hungry to do a little more than he's doing. So, yeah.
Very cool. I met someone recently. I actually it's like really awesome conversation. He's a big Purdue guy too. And one thing Mike can find about me that I don't know if you're like this, but I get so much joy out of connecting people, but I don't keep score. I call it a boomerang mindset. I'm always trying to throw boomerangs and connect people. So right when you said your son, I'm like, ooh, I got to connect him to my boy, Purdue.
Awesome. It's interesting when you say that because it reminds me of a couple, and I've had some conversations like this recently. People who do something for your kid, you'll do anything for them.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, particularly with the age of where our children are right now. And there's probably adults in your daughter's life that you would like do anything for because of the way they invest or love her or mentor her or care, or maybe will tell her the truth when she needs to hear it from someone who's not her parent. And I've got a handful of those people in my kids' lives who've either been a mentor or someone who reached out or did networking or career coaching. And it's huge. And that's why part of what I'm spending time right now doing is I'm trying to free myself up a little bit from the crazy travel I've been doing for the last, 6-7 years. I've got a handful of young guys like in their 20s that I'm pseudo mentoring, whether they're pre-career or early career. And I see the reaction from their parents when they know, oh, you're getting together with my son. You're having breakfast with my 20-year-old. And I love it. And part of the reason I'm doing is one, I care, but it's almost like I'm paying it forward because people did it for me. And I realize the impact when some mature, intelligent, grounded adult takes an interest in your kid. I mean, what a better way, right? I mean, and so many people are so lonely, and particularly the age of your kids. I don't know if you want to go down this path, but my 28-year-old is in a different generation than your youngest child. Even though a generation used to be 20 or 25 years, whatever happened in the last decade, and it started with smartphones and other trends, my 28-year-old did not grow up in the same world that your high school junior is growing up in, even though they're barely, 11 years apart or something like that.
Right.
And a lot has changed. So anytime mature, wise adults are helping younger people today who are not their children, like I applaud and salute. So
yeah, no, it's so true, man. It's like the people who helped my son, like on his golf journey. I'm like, if they called me today, I'd do anything, 1,000%. People who've helped, like, open up, do a training for my daughter, or make a phone call to this coach. I'm like, yeah, same thing. It's a no brainer.
Yeah. Is your son playing college golf?
Yep.
That's a big deal. Yeah.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah. And it's what the coolest thing about this journey so far, Mike, for I guess him and us, is he had a really good high school career. 4-year letterman, never, like, he won a district tournament once, but he was always like at state middle of the pack or above average. But there's some really good golfers who go D1. He's go to a school called Southern Oregon, but at his team now, his team is stacked. They have he's between number 4 to like number 7 on a team of 12, and he's a scratch.
Wow.
I mean, these kids are like the top 3 or plus.
It's amazing the level they're playing at, right?
Oh, and I love it because it's pushing him outside his comfort zone. And one of my favorite quotes that I found recently was actually by Kirk Cousins, of all people. And I've been sharing it with him, and everybody even share it now when I go speak. But it says, "Tough times won't last, but tough people do." Mm. And it just spoke to me, because I was like, it made me think, well, think of all the times I've been through, like an injury in high school that dramatically changed where I played football in college, to being a part of like biggest deals in my company history and then falling apart. And I was the same dude. And just staying true to like the values and how I was raised and how the mentors in my life got me. So I just like share with my son, both kids, like, you're going to go through hard times. That's not if, but when. But if you rely back on the things that we've taught you, that you've learned, that people you're surrounded by, you'll get through those times.
It's huge.
Yeah.
We joke about helicopter parenting and, bubble wrapping the kids, and it's true. I mean, I look at how I grew up and some of the hurdles I had to overcome that these kids didn't have, and we joke about raising rich kids and other different things. And there is definitely, I don't know what the word is, maybe deficiency. There are character development opportunities that are missed because of lack of struggle. And hearing you, I mean, my heart, grows when I hear you talk about the conversation with your kids and how to see them live out the way Kirk Cousins was, describing. And that's a guy I have a lot of respect for. I mean, just on the pro level, he had so much shade thrown at him. Like, he's never really been loved by the media or the NFL public, right? Maybe because he's made all this money, and maybe because he's never taken a team deep into the postseason. But like, there's a guy, like, I'd like to have dinner with that guy. Like, there's stories, right? And you can see how his teammates like him. Like, there's someone who shows up, who gets dirty, who does what has to be done. And he lives it out too, right? Every day. I mean, he's sharing his faith, and he's a man of integrity, and you never hear anything bad said about him.
He connects too with people.
Yeah, there's a lot in that. So,
well, you said, before I go back to you said something that's really important that I think I want to make sure that moms and dads and grandpa, whoever's listening today, listens, because we've interviewed 280 something dads, Mike, and we've done many episodes on like high school, like growing up being sports dads, and wanting it so bad for your kid, and doing everything because what you think they want to do. And like, one of the things I always tell my kids, like, dad's got no eligibility left. I am done. My fitness goals are: don't get fat, don't get hurt. That might be a book I want to write. My wife says you can't do it. I'm like, I think it'd be funny.
I really think that's solid. At my age, I'm 57. It's get unfat and live longer and healthier. So I think you're onto something. So yeah.
Okay, you'll have to write the cover. Okay, but like, when your daughter said, like, you invested it, you're like, oh my God, she's gonna be this architect. She's crazy smart. She da da da. Wait, Dad, I think there's a lot of gold in how you and your wife approach that. And so maybe talk about how did you not resist the urge to like, wait, what? Versus just meet her where she's at.
I think, well, the simple answer is this: we weren't surprised because we were tracking with her through the struggles, through the end of the last couple of years of her master's degree, and watching her challenges navigate when you're in architecture school, they treat you like you're in medical school. I mean, the hours, the stupidity, the pressure, the projects. I mean, and we could see that it was a little overwhelming. And as we know our daughter, it was apparent, particularly, when you get out of school, you're not in some high level job. Your first job is coordinator. You may have a master's degree, but you're coordinating. And so we saw this girl that was motivated by helping part of the reason she wanted to do urban landscape architecture was to increase the beauty and the quality of life of people who were often forgotten. And,
Wow.
that's kind of who she is. So she's good at art and she was good at people. But she was, and in the university setting, she got to do projects where there was research about people and betterment and lifting up, whether it was international projects or people in inner city situations where they were just poor aesthetics and poor quality of life, and the different things that city planners and people that care about that stuff to understand. But you get in the job and she's basically clicking a mouse, right? Doing CAD, redoing parking lots. Like, what landscape architecture is on paper at a firm is different than what it felt like in the university.
Yeah.
So I think because we knew she wasn't using her gifts and she felt like a glorified project manager, managing a psycho amount of details and projects, working for a firm that kept telling her we need it faster and we need it better, right? And we need it cheaper, limiting her number of hours on different projects. And I'm like, honey, they don't understand. You can't have all three of those. They only get to pick two, right? Like everyone in business kind of learns that. And so the bottom line was we saw it coming. We weren't surprised because we were in relationship. But I think the bigger lesson, and I'm not patting myself on the back for this, but of all the parenting memories I have, this isn't the top 3 or 4 of moments where I stopped myself from saying something stupid, or I was able to die to myself and my own vision or my own ego because it's fun. And I'll just be as transparent, Casey, as possible. I could tell like you're wired like this. It was fun telling people my daughter was a National Merit Scholar or was at the top of her class doing landscape architecture or graduated with this degree or was working in Chicago at this firm, right? But that's not my life. That's her life. And what I had to get over was, what do I care what people think about what my daughter's doing? Like, I'm proud for what's in her heart and what she wanted to do. So it was the ability to go, this isn't about me. And that's part of what I think I've learned the last few years as a parent of adult kids is it's not my life. I am
Right.
not living vicariously through them. And I think there's a lot of issues with some of my friends and my peers who are still living through their kids. And I think her making this dramatic shift was like a wake up call for my wife and me. And what we really want is her to be healthy and happy and productive and using her God given abilities and thriving as an adult, whatever that means,
Yep.
not measuring it on prestige or income. So I don't know if that helps like explain it. It was really realizing it wasn't about me and my ego, and I needed to let that go. And the truth was, because I love her, I want to see her thrive. I knew she needed to get out of that.
Yeah.
As a guy who was a consultant and in management all the time, what do I always teach sales leaders? Like, put the right people in the right role. Are they gifted? Do they have the DNA and the nurture and the characteristics to succeed in what you're asking them to do? And if you looked objectively at the job description of what she was being asked to do and who this person was, it was a total misfit. So I would have been a hypocrite to say, no, you keep doing that.
Yeah.
You know,
Don't quit. Don't quit. Don't be, yeah.
right.
That's
So,
good. I
so there
mean,
was no reason for, I didn't need to justify the ROI on our investment in her education. Like, who cares at this point? You're an adult. And now that you're an adult, you know what you're good at. And
yeah.
so I think it was all of that. And I think what's been interesting is the bonding that produced in our relationship and her trust of us, because I think I think I surprised her at my reaction a little bit. Like,
You
I wasn't
accepted her.
surprised, but she was surprised that I took it as well as I did. Until now, I'm in total grace. Like, let's go do what you're good at. And I said it to her, and I wasn't being mean or funny. I'm like, I said, Haley, you're never going to be great at this. This isn't who you're gifted. This isn't your thing. Like, and I'm not insulting you. Like, the stuff they ask you to do is, I know you. That's not you. You're going to be miserable every day. So if I care about her, I had to be okay with her getting out of that.
That's gold, man. That's I was like getting goosebumps. You're telling a story, and I think it's so powerful for parents. And if you're a younger dad listening, like, learn this journey, because it's so easy to, you see your kid going down a path and you know that they could be really good at something, but they might not want to do that. And we're not saying don't push your kid or support them, but it's like if they're just not happy doing something or they're in the wrong, like for me, if you put me in a job where I'm going to be building stuff, that building's not going to be earthquake proof. It's probably going to come down in like a 3-mile-an-hour windstorm, and I'm going to be sued and be in the big house for 48 years.
Yes, I can relate to that.
Right?
I've lacked those gifts as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I was handy, but like my buddies, I'm the butt of all the jokes. The fixing stuff. Now I'm a hard worker. I'll be a great second hand. I just don't have the mindset to see it. I'm like, was joking with my son, I'm like, dude, unfortunately, blame your dad. I passed that skill down to you. Like, you're not handy. I'm not handy. My wife, she probably has 83 tool belts, and that's not my jam.
No, and you know what? This is what adults learn. Like I'm thinking of some really famous people that affect the business community, like Dan Sullivan from the Strategic Coach, and he teaches about know your unique ability. What are you so good at that you would do for free because you love it? Like that's what you want to operate in. Michael Hyatt teaches about operating in your desire zone. Like get rid of the drudgery. Like you want to be really productive. Spend a lot of time on the thing you're freaking awesome at. And there's a lot of joy when you're doing what you're good at, using your natural gifting and the skills you've acquired. So it I would be extremely hypocritical if I wasn't living that out, right, as a
Yeah.
parent as well.
One of my famous go-tos, and I love sarcasm, Mike, is my buddies make fun of me. I'm like, how many words can you type per minute? Or how many people can you speak to in front of an audience and not get nervous?
That's really good.
Tongue in
Yeah.
cheek a little bit, but it's like, I don't get nervous in those environments. Maybe that's my gift. It's like anyway.
So weird
Okay.
question, just speaker to speaker, weird question. Was that natural for you? Were you always not nervous in front of an audience, or were you naturally good at speaking on a big stage environment early on, or did that take a lot of crafting?
That's a really good question. I don't remember. I mean, I definitely get sometimes, a little nervous butterflies. Like my coach in college said, if you're not nervous, you're not ready. So like I get those sometimes, but it's like that first hit or that first completion I threw, it's gone. I'm like bent zone, like locked in. Um, I thrive off it because it's like the joy of playing quarterback in college. This is now you're taking me down the Uncle Rico path from the playing dynamite here. I love when people look me in the eye and they believe in me. I love that. That's addicting. And I love the feeling of like that. I take that ownership. Like I am responsible for these 10 dudes. And we're going to go to, I can't wait. And I feel like that's my huddle when I speak. It's a bigger huddle.
What a great picture. One of the things I love to do when I'm being interviewed on podcasts is turn it around and start interviewing the geniuses that have me on their show. So I'm already excited to learn more from you just hearing you say that. I was never a natural speaker. I got away with it because my content's really solid from my books. And this is going to sound weird, but I'm likable because I'm just authentic. But I've never enjoyed the big stage. In fact, I just announced a few months ago that I'm done. I'm done doing monologue keynotes because I don't like it. Even though I've gotten decent at it over the last 10 years, I'm only doing workshops, interactive sessions, whatever, where I'm part of the audience and I'm doing it with you. I do not want to be on the stage because it's weird. Even after 10 years of practice and getting paid stupid money to do it, I've never enjoyed it. So I said, you know what? I'm in a place I don't have to do it anymore. I'm done.
Good for you.
I'll make a little less money, but I'm going to teach the way I want to teach in places I feel like I can make an impact. But it's still it's the same conversation with my daughter, like know thyself and do what you're good at. I'm just less hungry, probably income wise, than I was 10 years ago. So
I was just, you right. And you said it. I was like, you and your daughter share that in common now.
yeah, it's funny. It's like that. I never, you did say this would be like a therapy session. Now I feel like I'm on the couch. Okay. I'm living this out. So
Can I get you some water?
yeah, I got my little cheap Panera coffee right here.
Okay. So
sorry to drink Panera in front of a Seattle guy. That must be offensive to you.
No, because my Sonics, the Starbucks, I had to like get over it. But when they sold the team to Oklahoma City, that was like a punch in the face. I was like, what? So I'm like, I know more about the WNBA now because of my daughter.
Sure.
I couldn't tell you 10 NBA players, honestly. And I'm a big sports fan. When you lose a team, it sucks. But now I'm like a hockey guy because of my Kraken.
Yeah, I just woke up to learn that St. Louis Blues fired their coach like 20 games into the season last night. So there's a little chaos in the St. Louis papers today. I need to find out more about that.
My first, real quick, fun fact, my first NHL game ever, Blues Blackhawks.
Wow, that's a big rivalry.
I went in September. I was traveling in St. Louis for business. And this is like, 10 years ago maybe. And it was like game 5 with the World Series is there. And we were in town, like, we're not going to be able to go to that game. I said, I've never been to a hockey game. Let's go to a hockey game. And we got like 10 rows back behind the ice behind the Blues net. And it was a 1-1 game that they then went to overtime, but it was an awesome game.
What an experience.
I was addicted.
Yeah. That's a heck of a rivalry. St. Louis and Chicago is so interesting. Everyone in St. Louis has an inferiority complex about Chicago. I can say that because I'm not from here. Like everyone wants to be Chicago. And the one thing that kills St. Louisans is when the Cubs are better than the Cardinals. Because, for all those years you could say they never won a championship. Right. And 2016 was the year the Cubs won the World Series and the Rams left St. Louis to go back to California. I think people here are more depressed about the Cubs winning the World Series. I mean, it's very much
That's
this
funny.
dynamic where there's this crazy complex about Chicago. So,
Wow. Okay, I want to go back in time, Mike, and I want to learn what was life like growing up for you, and talk about the impacts your parents had on you now that you're a grandpa.
wow. All right, we'll go somewhere down that space. My parents divorced when I was in like third grade, fourth grade. So that obviously had a huge impact on my upbringing. And my parents didn't have a great relationship with each other. So, it was always mom's side, dad's side. I lived with my mom for like 90% of my childhood, but near the end of high school, I moved in with my dad because just relationship issues with my mom, which have since been patched up. But there was a definite I don't know what the word is, an instability in the way I was raised that definitely impacted the type of parent that I wanted to be. And I never really thought about that a lot as a kid, but as an adult, it became apparent. And I'll give you one example. My dad was in sales and sales management. So we moved around a bunch when I was young as he was getting promoted. And then after my parents got divorced, ended up moving a couple times with my mom. And it's weird. I live in the house I've lived in with my wife for 25 years right now. And while we make a lot more money now than when we bought this house, and we could probably live anywhere we want to live, I don't want to go anywhere. In fact, we're
Love it.
talking about a remodel right now because we like our neighbors and we like where we are. And there's a part of me, and I think because it's the way I grew up without stability, that just likes that I live here and I know this house and I know what's wrong with it and I know what needs to, you know what I'm saying? And this is
Yeah.
like home. And I want my kids to have this like home that they could come back to if they wanted to. So I think some of that, I don't know what the right word is to put, uncertainty or instability as a youth has played itself out as a parent. But I will tell you this, I was loved well by my parents for all of their shortcomings and, issues that everyone brings to the table in their parenting.
Yep.
Never once thought I wasn't loved or approved of. I was never really critiqued or beaten down, or I don't have those issues, and as an adult, my parents have both been incredible cheerleaders for what I'm doing in my life, my marriage, my business. So it's not like I've never felt like unapproved of, or some of the other challenges I see with, the people are still trying to fight those wounds from their childhood. I think it was just more the instability piece of it. But I have great memories too. Like, I mean, and my dad, I mean, I quote him on a weekly basis
Mm.
in my books, and I'm teaching. Like, there's things I picked up from him, whether some of his little expressions, like when I was, like, hey, buy cheap, get cheap, or nowhere is it written that life is fair, or there's no such thing as a certified check. I mean, and then from a sales manager perspective, like his coaching, particularly when I was young, it was indelible. And I credit a lot of my success as a salesperson and now as this consultant writer to things I picked up from him,
Yeah.
for all the grief we may have on a regular interaction, like every father and son, would have. It's there's a lot of joy and satisfaction in that. And my mom, and that there's, my mom had a very tough childhood. She grew up basically in orphanages for the first 6-7 years of her life, which, you understand now looking back, like it's hard to make up for the lack of love and things that were there. And it explains a lot of what her adult life has looked like. And yet, there's a lot of still peace and oh, she's come a long way. Let's just say that. And a lot of love. And it's, maybe I'm also more, I don't know, as I get older and I see my parents, my dad's in his early 80s, my mom's almost 80, a little softening maybe on, just towards them. So I don't know if that help.
Grace.
I don't know if that quench. Yeah, grace, and it's funny. I give less grace to my parents than anyone else on this planet. Just like my kids, I think probably give me less grace than they give to anybody else. Like I think a lot of times parents bring out the worst in their kids. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. You don't mean to, but like, and you don't want to become your parents, and your parents don't become their parents, but and you know it's coming, and eventually there's
you,
things but like I like my mom, God love her. My mom, they'll be here this week. They're already texting me about dinner plans and what we're gonna have. And I'm like, they're the Geico commercial or that insurance commercial. It's like,
Those commercials are the best.
Oh my God, hilarious.
And
So
my
I'm
kids
like,
appreciate them because I am those people that are being corrected in that commercial. That is I am that guy.
I know, and I know it's like I find myself getting like a weirdly like, oh my God, they're doing it because they're excited to see us and they can't wait. And I hope when my kids are here, like when my son came home, last week, Thursday night, he was home for an hour and a half before he's going to his buddy's house. And my first thought was like, what? Well, do you want to hang out with it? But I'm like, I didn't want to do that at his age.
Yeah.
Just like go. You want, I told my wife, like, we want our kids going to hang out with their buds. We want them to be in a relationship. Like, that means we're doing something right.
Totally. It's so funny you say that because this is Thanksgiving week that we're recording this.
Yeah.
My son from India is coming home on Wednesday, and he has already warned me. And even though my mom's in town, and he's going to come home on Wednesday afternoon, and there's a Liverpool soccer match, which is his thing. And he goes, I'll be around for a couple hours, but that evening, my high school buddies and I are getting together, so I won't be around. And I'm like, I understand. Go enjoy your friends. I'll see you the next morning.
Yeah.
It's good, and it's getting over our need for that.
Yeah. So your mom and dad are still with us?
They're both still with us. And my stepmom is a really important part of the equation. In fact, we just celebrated. My stepmom's a lot younger. She's 70.
Okay.
My dad's like 11 years older than her. And we just celebrated her 70th. And it was really fun to bless her. And both of my parents know that I would say this. In fact, we made this tribute video for her while we were around the table. And I looked at her in front of my dad. And I said to the rest of the family, you all know my dad and you know my mom. This is normal. And I thanked her. I said, I thank you for bringing Jesus and normalcy into my family. You brought some really important things, and we're very tight. My stepmom is a hugely important, influential person in my life, and so are her parents, who brought this normal Midwestern traditional, grandparenting role into me that was very different than what my parents' were like. So anyway, it's fun that she's an important piece of who I've become, and a valuable consultant and resource in my life too.
Wow, that's cool. That spoke to me because my dad unfortunately passed away December 29th, 2021. And in season 3, I dedicated every episode to him. And so when I was there for his last breath, and he was the dad that, didn't miss a thing. But he had a lot of challenges, and I was me and my wife were the role of the grandparent. Well, actually, we were parenting our parents at age 23 through 45. Brutal. But I just always told myself, because I'm an optimist, a naive optimist, I'm like, this didn't happen to me. This happened for me. And luckily I was in a spot mentally, physically, emotionally, financially to be able to help support him. And I'm grateful for that journey. But my mom remarried 20 something years ago. Great dude. Call him Big Al. He's like loving guy, big Boston sports guy, loves golf, loves fallen rider, loves fallen with daughter Riley. Like, he's got great kids. But like that dynamic of because I don't think anybody says when their kids, God, I hope my parents get divorced and I can't wait to meet my stepmom.
Right. Exactly.
It is what it is. And so I was lucky that he's a good dude, takes care of my mom, loves my mom. My dad never got remarried. And so, but one thing I want to ask, because like my mom, sometimes she'll I'm going to poke fun at my mom here, and I hope she listens to this. She's like, you always thank your dad a lot, but not me on the podcast. And I'm like, well, that's fair. And so, I was going to ask you if you can remember, and I want to give love to my mom here in a second, but tell me, what is the best, if you have like a memory of where you got like taught something, whether it's ego or a life lesson that you still think about to this day, like tell me what comes to mind either from your mom or your dad that you passed down.
Wow. My mom, some of it was by example. I don't have a lot of memorable phrases from her, but I can remember watching her scramble as a single mom, trying to figure out life. And it's not easy, right? And it gives you incredible appreciation for anyone who's a single parent, whether it's a mom or a dad. But, going to work and trying to juggle caring about the kids' school and providing, balancing whatever the income was coming in from what she would get from alimony and child support on top of what she needed to earn. And I just remember, while there was stress, so like it wasn't a stress-free life with us, and she and I have had our moments relationally, she carried the load, you know. She didn't always do it great, but she did it. And that was a really good example for me, honestly, that stuck. My dad was more of the one-liners and the wisdom. He's kind of a teacher. He's a little professorial at times. He likes to lecture and share. And it's just little tidbits about life that I just find myself quoting him in different areas. And I mean, I could think of so many. I've even used a couple of them in this one already, but one I'll use the sales one I haven't shared yet. He sat me down when I was moving out of New York and loading up a Ryder rental truck to come to St. Louis. And he was a big time New York City executive at this point. He goes, I just want to make sure you understand this. Like, you're going into sales, and I know you've watched me and you listen to stuff, but do you really understand that sales is about helping your customer be successful? And he goes, the thing I want you to understand is as long as your motivation is to help the customer win, you'll always win in sales. And my dad has preached a lot of stuff at me over the years. Nothing stuck quite like that one, honestly. And I will tell you, that was the bedrock of my success that showed me you go sell with integrity. Sales is not something you do to somebody, it's something you do with them, right? You sit on the same side of the table, you're trying to solve their problem, get them a result. It means you always operate with integrity, you're honest.
Yep.
You're not trying to manipulate, you're doing what's in their best interest. And it's funny now that, that I have a podcast and I interview brilliant people in sales. They always bring back some version of that they became a rock star. I interviewed this guy last year. So I became a rock star because I became thick as thieves with my best customers. I said, what does that mean? He goes, it means that I got to the place with them that they knew I put their best interest above my own.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was his beautiful living out of what my dad taught me when I was a young man. Like, it's not about you. So he had a lot of just ability to encapsulate some powerful wisdom. And that one stuck with me. Like, that was more like business wisdom than maybe life wisdom, although it certainly has crossover. But I mean, I've built a 30-year successful career on top of what he told me when I moved out of New York 32 years ago.
Love it. That spoke to me on multiple levels. I got to give my love to my mom, but I want to say, like, what you spoke is what, have you seen Christmas Vacation? Seen the cut, when Griswold sees his tree, when he goes in the forest and it's like glowing, he's like, that's it.
That's it.
So when I wrote that, so my book, title of my book is called Win the Relationship, Not the Deal. And so when that title came to me, I was like, that's it. Like, and I was just like, it was so clear that was it. And, to me, winning people is people will sell themselves. That's not my job. My job is to help them get there. They'll know when it's the right one. If it's me, great. If it's not, that's fine too. But I feel like and I think the reason now, full circle, why I'm like this is because my mom and my dad, but my mom, I remember at age 11, first time playing like fast pitch baseball. And the dude, like I could have swore it was Randy Johnson when I got him down. He was like 9'4", throwing 1,000 miles an hour. And like the ball was coming out of a tornado. Like it was going everywhere. I'm like, I'm going to die as an 11-year-old. This is it. I'm done. And so I luckily walk and don't get hit. And I'm like, there's not a chance in hell I'm going up there again. So I'm like, how do I get a stomach ache? Yeah. Oh yeah. My I'm out. Tell the coach. And I'm like, sweet, I'm alive. I'm going to see another day. And I get in the car and my mom's like, hey, Mike, I'm 48, by the way. I'm remembering this like it's yesterday.
I understand.
My mom's like, hey, how's the stomach ache? What do you mean? Well, yeah, it's pretty good. Do you have a stomach ache? Well, not really, because why? Well, because I've scared, pardon my French, shitless. I thought I was going to die. I didn't want to face this guy. He's like, so you lied. I'm like, well, kind of. Yeah, I didn't want to die, Mom. So we get home. My mom calls the coach, tells him, and she says, hey, so here's your choices. You're going to call your coach and apologize, or you're off the team. And I'm like, what? And
How old were you now? 10?
11.
11.
And I had to call the coach and apologize. And he was like, well, I'm really disappointed in you, Casey. But it took a lot of strength to be able to own it. And so when we get to practice on Tuesday, you're going to tell the team the same thing you just told me. I mean, I had to face the music as an 11-year-old, and I had to apologize.
What
And
a coach, what a mom, and what a coach. That make like a life
oh,
indelible memory out of that.
I had to own it. And they literally, and I was like, I was so embarrassed and so mortified, but like the team's like, "Hey, Case, we got you. We'll let it go." And I'm like, I remember we had to run like to the fence and back, and I was like, "Okay, I got through that. That was all right." But that was like, again, back to tough times don't last, tough people do. Like that is part of who I am. Like dealing with those moments.
Isn't
So
that
shout out to
incredible?
Mom. You're on the
And this
podcast.
is where you stop and go, thankfully, someone cared enough about me to do that.
Yep.
Like that was love. That's part of telling the truth and love right there.
Yep.
Because it could have been glossed over, but that was a formative moment. I got to ask you this. Like you've done hundreds of episodes. How many times have you told that story? Have you never told that before? Has that snuck into any episode or no?
Um, I've
Because it's
told another story of my mom when she. Well, maybe I'll tell this one
all
again.
right. Because I just can't believe it's. I mean, that's so meaningful. It's funny how whatever brought it up today that that came out.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Curiosity is driving this conversation. So
Yeah.
my other one was my mom. My buddy was turning 16. Shout out to Chuck Lewandowski. He had his little. They had this like cabin that we go to. His 16th birthday party. We're all going to water ski, hang out. We're so excited. Well, I had worked at a little this thing called Papa Murphy's or Papa Olive's, like a take and bake pizza shop here in Seattle, and
Yeah.
it was like 16. They had four of us working on a Sunday, and I'm like, well, I got to get this thing off because I want to be able to go to the party. And my boss goes, yeah, you got to work Sunday. We can't get the time off. I'm like, with all due respect, boss, I said, it's Papa Murphy's. And A, no one really comes in here. And B, specifically on a Sunday, can I just trade with someone? Yeah, no. I'm like, damn it. So now I'm like, well, how am I going to get out of this? And so I'm like, I got an idea. So I go, I don't. The next day I go in, you're never going to guess, boss. I got a family reunion. Uh, Coming up. I mean, the fact that creative lie is so embarrassing. So I fake a family reunion and I tell them like, hey, my mom said, yeah, if I have to, I have to be able to go to the family reunion, right? Where I'm gonna have to quit the job. He's like, no, oh, totally get it. So we'll let you have it off. Well, he calls my mom. He goes, hey, I just want to apologize. And he sounds like Casey has a family reunion this weekend. And my mom's like, what? Oh, we don't.
You think he knew, right? He knew you were lying.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And my
Yeah.
mom, again, she's like, I'm sorry he did that, but he's got to face it. So he could have, made excuses for me. So I had to go in. He's like, hey, Case, thanks for coming in. You excited for this? Is like on a Friday. So I'm thinking I'm going to be able to go to the party. Life's great. He's like, how's are you excited for the family reunion? I'm like, yeah. He goes, are you sure you have one? Because I talked to your mom and she didn't know about it. I'm like, oh, God. He's like, today's your last day, Case. Thanks for firing me on the spot.
Wow.
But I'm so grateful for that because I would never do that stuff again. So it's like always, full circle back to sales and coaching. What we're doing now is like, the mindset of it's okay not to know everything, not okay not to do anything about it. It's so the power of vulnerability was taught, for integrity, being honest, following through, commitment, and just that feeling of letting someone down. Not only my mom, my dad, the embarrassment. I don't know. I don't know why I'm sharing this one, but it's like it's fun to just therapeutic to know that sometimes people see people doing what they're doing, and what shaped people is like moments like that.
100%. Yeah, there are so many places we could go with this. I'll just share this one business perspective because I'm always coaching. I'm spending a ton of time in the last couple of years working with sales management teams. And one of the things I teach is how to do accountability because it's a lost art. People think
Yeah,
it's dirty. Like, it's not dirty. You got to show people this is where you stand. You stick the results under their nose against their goal. Where do they rank on the team? Like scoreboards matter. Like keeping score is not inappropriate. No,
yeah,
sometimes I have to use a sports analogy and I joke like, this isn't church league soccer. Like this is Premier League. Like this is we're playing big time. This isn't monopoly money. This is not
right.
a nonprofit. And it's interesting what I've uncovered is how much discomfort there is in telling people the truth these days. And the reason we don't address underperformance with employees is like there's this fear or that it's inappropriate or how someone's going to react. And some of it's the baggage that they didn't have the boss or the mom or the coach that you had or that I had that was willing to tell you the truth.
Yep.
It's very freeing when someone's honest with you. Like I see it when people do good accountability, not micromanagement, but good accountability. even underperformers tend to be appreciative of the holding up the mirror because you're giving them a chance to self-correct as opposed to just waiting till you explode and then fire somebody in anger,
Right.
or just they peter it out. There's not enough telling the truth in love. It doesn't mean you're angry. It doesn't mean you're condemning the person. But if someone's failing, you got to say, I need to show you this. This is where you are. And how can we fix it? Like, you're not helping anybody by trying to cover up their pain they might feel by not telling them they're failing, because they're failing regardless of whether you show it to them or not. I
Right.
don't know if that resonates with you, but I'm living in that world on a daily basis, and it's some version of parenting if you're really honest about it.
Totally. Well, the truth will set you free. It's like, I'm not trying to be the bad guy. I'm telling you the truth because you told me you wanted me to coach you, or you wanted me the truth. And so I can either lie to you and let you go down the path of failing, or I can say, hey, jumping off the cliff without a parachute is probably not a good idea. If you want to try it and see what happens, go for it, and I'll see you in heaven. But like, if not, don't do it. You know. Okay. If you think about back to dad life, you think about your hardest time as a dad. Tell me what comes to mind and what did you learn from it?
Wow. I haven't had, I would say that it's interesting that I don't have a hardest time that pops to mind. There are moments I'm thinking about, from my daughter going through eye surgeries, and feeling like helpless, um, and scared, to those moments, to my son not getting into the fraternity, and having to deal with that rejection after, and it's shock, like, how in the world could that have happened to him? Like, the most relational, good looking, happy, perfect candidate gets told no. Um, so I don't know that I have a moment that I could say was the worst moment. There were moments where the kids faced something that seemed unjust, that really hurt, and I could think of a few of those for each of the kids. But um, I've had a relatively, and I say this, and thank you God that I haven't been tested by this, because Lord knows I have friends who I think are wonderful parents, and they've had a lot more testing and a lot more challenges and pain as parents. And I honestly, this is going to sound weird, but I just think it's grace. Like, I'm humbled by the ease with which we've had parenting, and do not take as much credit for it as some people may be tempted to. Because of what I just said, I have family and friends who are really good parents that have really heavy burdens with their children and struggles.
Yeah.
And those it's sobering. So I don't know if that answers your question, or I skirted it, but mostly when my kids were dealt something that was really unfair.
Yeah.
A coach, one of my sons was told by uh, a basketball coach at high school, "You're going to be a great teammate on this team. I'm excited to have you." And then 2 days later, when the list of players making the team came out, he wasn't on it. Like, I'm like, what? That was like, what the hell was that?
Yeah.
There was some, when those kind of moments where I would just be enraged. But I have to look back and go, some of those were also formative, where the world, the kids learned what my dad preaches, that nowhere is it written that life is fair. It's
Yeah.
not. And it's how you deal with it.
Life is
So
not fair.
no, it's not. And that's I think that's the mistake we all make.
And just because you're a good person, like, bad stuff sometimes happens. And whether it's, I mean, I've had friends lose wives. I've had I've had friends lose kids. I had one friend lose two kids. I can't even imagine that.
No, it's not imaginable. Yeah.
It's like, what? Um, like, they didn't deserve that. Um, but all we can do is be the best version of ourselves every day. Whether it's through faith or whatever people's, that's their journey. I feel like what keeps me grounded as a dad is gratitude every morning. I literally have a gratitude journal, and it's like, I'm such a habit guy by it,
Wow.
that every morning, it's like, the first line is, God, thanks for waking me up. And just when I say that, it like almost brings a smile to my face. Or, thanks for my health. I got a chance to meet Mike today. I got a chance to do this. I got a chance to do this. I got even something silly as, like, I was showing my son something last night, and it was just like this weird little gate that was kind of broken. I was trying to teach him, and I could tell he was getting frustrated. And I almost found myself getting frustrated with him. He's like, "God, so dumb." I'm like, "Whoa, no, you're not. You're not dumb." And never talk to yourself like that ever again in
Huh.
front of me. Um, but then I thought about myself, like, shit, maybe I didn't. Well, maybe I wasn't the best coach trying to describe. You have two non-handy people trying to help each other. Well, that's not a good recipe for disaster. That's not a good. So this morning, I'm like, I can't wait till he wakes up because I'm going to say, "Hey, that was on me. I don't think I was the right coach. I don't think I was describing it well enough because you didn't understand it." And I want you to be able to be always in a spot where, "Hey, Dad, you're not making sense. Ask me questions." And like, whenever you want to ask questions, that'll be the best answer because I'm okay with questions because I teach curiosity in life. And so like that goes back to, staying grounded, like, I'm the idiot, not you. I got to find ways to better teach you.
That's really healthy, isn't it? That's really good.
You just feel better when you own it.
Yeah. I think there's a word that comes to mind when I hear you talk, and there's just an honest humility that, you bring it to the table in that conversation, which I think is lacking in a lot of us. And that's my sin, right? It's when you start thinking more highly of yourself than you ought. And you can't stop and go, maybe I was the wrong coach here. And that's a big moment. And I've realized with family in particular, there are times that I'm like, you should just chill out a little here, Weinberg. Maybe you're over asserting or you're not as right as you think you are. And that's a hard thing to say to yourself.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm going to give love to my wife. You made me think of the story, and we'll wrap up here. One of the best things my wife gave me, Mike, was so year one when I was like, I leave corporate, not sure what was happening, and I get into this entrepreneurial journey. Didn't mean to do that, and I'm just loving like the podcast journey is fun. I'm loving the coaching. It's just like my energy is just I'm getting filled with it. It's so fun. And I remember one day my wife's like, I know that you're excited about all this stuff, but no one else is excited about it as you. And we don't want to get coached. We want you to be dad.
Wow.
We want Casey back. And you want to talk about a freaking, kick to the, what, without a cup on. I was like at first, like defensive, like, well, what? But I'm like, just be yourself, dude. Like all my buddies aren't bragging about their job. All my buddies aren't, hey, I tell you, I pulled this guy over. He's going 34 and a 26, 25. God, I got him good. It's like, it is that's why I feel like I'm most grateful for is I'm around so many people that keep me grounded.
So healthy. I've lived through what you're describing also.
Hmm.
No one is less impressed with my business than my wife and my kids. I can't even begin. Like it's almost more of a burden to them than it is. Like there's no joy in it. And I mean that. And it's been a weirdest thing. And it's the temptation as a man, like, I want respect. I want this. I can get it outside the house. And like that's just bizarre, bad tapes playing in your head. Like,
Yeah.
I get it. They're so unimpressed with me. It's almost sometimes I have a conversation with a client or someone writes a testimonial and I'm like, could you send that to my family? Because what you're saying is they don't really want it. They want you, husband or dad or son. They don't want coach. And it's very important that you even going into this Thanksgiving, hearing you say that is a good reminder to me in terms of my own expectations and what lens I will look through this week, because there will be disappointments. And my kids will make selfish choices and my mom will trigger me. And all of those things.
Yep.
And it's just good to pause and breathe in a little bit and understand like there's appropriate ways. And it's some of it comes back to, I'm going to say it again, like humility and just thinking a little less of yourself or thinking of yourself a little less often. Yeah. And that could solve a lot of problems. And I just want to say one more thing as we're getting near the end too. Like I said this in the beginning, and I can't tell you how important it is. And as we're sitting here, I'm getting a text from a friend who's really struggling in a relationship with his children. And it's a mess. And what I'm so frustrated with my friend is helping him see that while he may be right about the facts, his approach is not helping the relationship. And I cannot tell you how many times my wife and I have had the conversation with ourselves regarding our own family, or as we're talking to some of our peers wrestling with children who are causing great challenges, to choose relationship over being right or making a point or being dogmatic. And whether it's children who have completely rebelled and gone a crazy direction, or have chosen a lifestyle that is very different than what the parents would have imagined or hoped for, or
Yep.
it's just some little thing where there's tension. I think so many family disruption challenges could be averted or reduced or tension, mitigated by us saying, let's do it. Let's do this for the sake of relationship. Even I had this conversation with my dad. My dad was politically nuts the last 10 years. And I understand everyone in America is politically nuts, but he couldn't stop sending stuff, even if I didn't agree with it. And finally, I just said, like, for the sake of relationship, could you stop? And he really didn't. But I had to say to myself, okay, for the sake of relationship, I'm not going to read it and I'm not going to respond because he obviously can't help himself. And it's just, do you get where I'm going? Like,
Totally.
we all need to breathe a little bit in this environment of, algorithm fed one piece of news, one side coming your way, whether it's whatever your favorite social media platform is or whichever cable news you watch.
Right.
Like, it's just not, that's not helping any relationships.
Nope.
That's just telling you you're right with a bunch of other angry people, whether you're on the left or the right or whatever other pick your position. And I think sometimes we would all be in a better shape if we would place value on the relationship and the respect of the other people above other things. So
I love that. Well, I'll end then with this before we go into what I call the lightning round is what you just described was one of the best pieces of advice I got at age 23 from my first boss in my first sales job. He says, Casey, do you want to be right or do you want to get what you want? I go, I want both. He's like, you can't, you got to pick one. I'm like, damn
wow.
it.
Say that again.
Do you want to be right or do you want to get what you want?
And you can't always have both.
Can't always, you got to pick one. To me, I think it's the best. I always tell my clients that that's one of the best sales interview questions. Because if they say, I want to be right, then do not hire them. That means you got an egomaniac that's going to be doing, he or she's going to be selfish, but getting what you want is outcomes. Like for your friend, like being right. Yeah, you're right. But if you tell them you're right, they're going to resist you.
You just help me more than you know as I'm dealing with my friend, honestly. Like I just reframing that for him would be so helpful right now.
Oh,
That's
love it,
good.
man. Well,
I owe you for that. That was worth the whole conversation.
serendipity, universe, God, whatever, where you were meant to, I always believe we were meant. People I meet, it's for a reason. I always look for it.
Yep.
And okay, I want to make sure before we go in the lightning round, tell us. I know there's a sales leader out there. There's someone that maybe they're looking for. But I know you don't want to do this, but I'm gonna make you do it. Like, give me the minute. What's Mike Weinberg doing? How can people learn more about you? Whether it's your books, the workshops, because I think you do have a ton to offer many, many people. And as a sales coach doing similar stuff, there's so much opportunity for all of us out there. So tell us, how can we learn more about you and the work you're doing?
Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity to do that. The website is Mike Weinberg, WEINBERG, MikeWeinberg.com. Got a lot of free stuff. My passion in business is helping salespeople and sales teams win more new sales. And I do that in two ways. I work with sales teams and help them develop more new business. And my first book, New Sales Simplified, is what put me on the map. And it sells more today, 12 years later, than it sold even when it came out as a new bestseller. But the second way I do it, which is probably where I spend 70% of my time right now, is I work with leaders, sales executives, and sales managers, and I help them radically ramp up sales management effectiveness. So my podcast is the Sales Management Simplified Podcast, and my last couple books have been about sales management. And the events I do for sales leaders are called Supercharge Your Sales Leadership, where I do these full day intensive all around the basics of sales management simplified. Everything can be found at MikeWeinberg.com. I play on Instagram a little bit, really for fun. LinkedIn obviously is a little more business serious. But I've got lots of free resources. The podcast has been a surprising grace for me. I didn't expect to have this type of following on the podcast or have so many people reach out to me. And it's free, and I put out a lot of content. I interview really a lot of people, whether they're similar influencers and authors or they're practitioners sharing their struggles and their best practices. So that's where people can find me. And I always say this, and I mean it. I am blown away that I have the position I'm in. I didn't have a vision board that said you're going to be a well-known sales coach, speaker, author. Like I didn't have a plan for that. I kind of happened into it, and I'm just trying to be a good steward of the platform that's been given to me and make as big a dent as I can with my clients and bring as much value as possible. So thanks for asking.
No, love it. Love it. We will make sure that's all linked in the show notes, everybody. And we'll make sure the books are linked, the website's linked. Mike, though, it's now time to go into the lightning round.
I'm scared. Okay, now I don't know
Yeah.
what to expect, and I know it's going to
Well,
go quickly.
this is going to show you the negative hits of me taking too many hits in college, not bong hits, but football hits.
All right.
And your job is to answer them as quickly as you can. My job is to get a giggle out of you.
Okay. Yeah, I will. That will not be hard. Here we go.
Okay. True or false, when you play golf with your wife, you play the Reds and she plays the Blues?
False.
Okay. True or false, while you go to the Porsche racetrack, you race a gremlin?
False.
Okay. If I was to go into your phone right now, what would be the one song that would surprise your kids that you listen to?
There would be no surprise because no one makes fun of my eclectic music choices more than my kids.
What is the song choice then? What would you go to?
I'm just going to go with Million Little Miracles since it's my favorite song right now.
Okay.
Joe Barnes.
Okay. What would be your one, if you had to go, you're going to speak at the biggest stage ever and you're going to do one last speaking event. What's your walk-up song?
Beautiful Day.
Okay. That's a good one. If there was to be, actually, favorite 80s comedy movie is?
Vacation wasn't 80s, was it? Eddie Murphy. Beverly Hills Cop 1. That's easy.
Okay. Solid choice. If you had your dream foursome, you're playing golf with three other people. What course you playing and who's in the group?
I've never thought about this. Let's not make it the Masters. Let's make it a playable golf course that's really pretty.
Okay.
So I don't know. Maybe we'll go Pebble Beach or somewhere that's just gorgeous. Maybe Bandon Dunes or something like that. Scotty Scheffler's first on the list because I've got a man crush on him like no one's business because of who he is and how he's conducted and how much money he's made and this how he's still living the same life he lived before he made his $100 million. I love Jerry Seinfeld, and I think it would be a riot to hang out with him just in a normal conversation. And I get one more.
Yeah.
I need to think about that. I honestly, I'm not even sure who it would be. I'll go with Adam Wainwright for right now because I know he loves golf and he was a hero to me in St. Louis for all the years he was a pitcher here and just an outstanding man in the community and someone I really looked up to. So Jerry Seinfeld, Adam Wainwright, and Scotty Scheffler. That's not the foursome I would have. Like if I had time to think about it, probably wouldn't have been that answer.
Well, when this episode comes out, when I post on LinkedIn in the comments, maybe if your foursome changes, let us know.
I will think about this. Yes.
Okay. If there was to be a book written about your life, tell me the title.
That is a killer question. New York Kid Makes Good.
There we go. Okay. Now, New York Kid Makes Good is crushed all the other books you wrote. Those are like JV books. This is the varsity book. And it's every airport. Amazon can't print enough. It's just crushing it. So Netflix has found out about it and they want to make a movie out of it. And now you're the casting director. And I need to know who's going to star Mike Weinberg in New York Kid Done Good.
Oh, this is easy. Let's just get the child actor Mike Weinberg, who sometimes, and Google messed this up for a few years, he starred in Home Alone 4. Let's just go get Mike Weinberg, the actor, to play Mike Weinberg, the New York Kid Makes Good. That was the easiest question you asked me yet.
I like it.
I get about 10 pieces of mail a year from some crazy psycho Mike Weinberg actor fan that tells me, that wants to convince me that I am that Mike Weinberg that was in the movie and now I'm hiding it because I have the sales consulting author business. I've got some crazy mail. Crazy.
That's hilarious.
It is. It's bizarre.
Wow. Okay. Last question. Tell me 2 words that would describe your wife.
Beautiful. Deep.
Love
caring.
it.
3.
We'll call that hyphenated.
Okay.
So it's still 2. We'll give you credit for that one. All right. Lightning round's over. I think I laughed at my own jokes more than you.
Those are freaking hard questions.
That's why it's fun. This has been an absolute blast. I apologize we've gone over, but it's funny when life happens like this. Like my day is packed, but I did have extra gap afterwards, which is called serendipity. It was meant to be. This has been so much fun. I feel like I went through therapy. I love learning about you. I hope our paths cross where we actually can meet in person, maybe on the golf course. Never know.
I would like that.
But it's been an honor spending time with you. Thanks for being an example for many of us doing the similar work you're doing. Thanks for showing us the way and staying humble. And just sharing your honest, open stories. I know it's going to impact a lot of dads and hopefully grandpas, maybe moms today. But Mike, thanks so much for your time. It's really, really fun spending time with you. And again, have a great Thanksgiving with your family.
You are gracious and kind. Thank you for having me.